60 Minutes Rewind.
Alan Greenspan may go down as one of the best chairmen of the Federal Reserve in American history. His 18-year tenure was marked by unprecedented economic growth, budget surpluses, and a booming stock market. And he was praised universally for shepherding the economy through the shock of 9/11. Now he's written his memoir, The Age of Turbulence, which comes out just as he's coming under fire, something he's not used to, for today's housing and lending crises. His critics say he established a pattern of bailing out Wall Street investors. Greenspan sat down with us for his first major interview, defending himself against the criticism that he should have done something to stop the shady practices in subprime lending. In a rare admission, he told us he missed its significance. If you knew these practices were going on, and even maybe just suspected that there was something illegal or shady, why didn't you speak out?
Well,
you had a huge megaphone. People really listened to Alan Greenspan.
Well, I was aware a lot of these practices were going on. I had no notion of how significant they had become until very late. I didn't really get it until very late in 2005 and 2006.
But others at the Fed did get it, that banks and mortgage companies had already signed up millions of home buyers and speculators, many with poor credit, for so-called subprime mortgages with complicated interest rate adjustments that have led to record numbers of defaults. Some of the practices were fraudulent. One of your former Fed governors, Ed Gramlich, said that he proposed that the Fed examine these lending practices and look into them to see if something could be done, and that you rejected that idea.
Well, I thought,
why did you reject it?
I thought that we would not be capable of doing what he was suggesting.
What, of sitting on them, taking some regulate? What?
Well, I think not.
Even if you even looked into it?
Well, that's nothing to look into particularly, because we knew that there was a number of such practices going up, but it's very difficult for banking regulators to deal with that.
He insists there's nothing he could have done to prevent today's plummeting home prices and the fact that 1 million families have lost their homes and many more could. But some economists now say Greenspan actually created the housing bubble and the credit crunch by keeping interest rates too low for too long.
Just remember, we raised interest rates at every meeting from June of 2004 till I got out of office.
You raised rates in 2004, but only after you held interest rates at historically low levels for 3 years while the housing bubble was forming. And that you had 13 rate cuts in that period of time.
It was our job to unfreeze the American banking system if we wanted the economy to function. This required that we keep rates modestly low.
But some of the Fed governors who worked with you at the time are now saying that they think interest rates were too low for too long.
I think they are mistaken.
What this shows is how certain he is about his views and how firmly he guided the Fed when he was chairman and dealt with shocks to the financial markets by quickly lowering interest rates. Now, in the current turmoil, investors are calling on his successor, Ben Bernanke, to do what Greenspan would have done. The sense is you would have acted sooner. You would have thrown more cash and liquidity into the system. You would have acted faster and more dramatically.
I'm not sure that's true, and let me tell you why. We were dealing in an environment back there where inflation was easing, so we could move sooner without the fear of stoking inflationary pressures. You can't do that anymore, and therefore it's a different world. I'm not certain that I would have done anything different were I there, or...
So you don't think you would have acted any faster?
I doubt it.
So you don't see any light between you and what Mr. Bernanke is doing?
I think he's doing an excellent job.
The CEOs of Ford and Chrysler are begging the Fed to lower rates. I mean, on their hands and knees.
I would suggest that they focus on selling creating better cars for their customers.
The current criticism of his time at the Fed notwithstanding. Do you miss coming to work here? Alan Greenspan guided the economy through the jolt of 9/11 and presided over an unprecedented stretch of 10 years without a recession. When he retired in 2006 at age 79, he was considered almost infallible. Now that you are out of government and making real money, I'm wondering how you're investing. Are you investing in real estate?
There are certain questions I never thought you would ask, but knew that if you did, I wouldn't answer, and you just hit one of them.
What about the stock market?
I just as soon not comment.
But that's what everybody wants to know.
I'm sure they do.
I tried again later by asking about his book advance, reportedly $8 million. Well, if you could be paid in any currency in the whole world, what would you like to be paid in?
Well, as an economist, I would say I couldn't care less because I could immediately convert it in the exchange markets to whatever currency I want.
So it doesn't matter?
No.
Euros, dollars, dinars, it's all the same to you?
Key question, basically, is in what currency do you wish to hold your assets?
Okay.
And what I've done is I diversify.
Oh, you do, even in terms of currency?
Yeah.
Not a surprise. He wouldn't say which currencies he's holding. That's a nice picture. What is a surprise is how personal and chatty his book is. By his own admission, The Age of Turbulence is a psychoanalysis of himself. And analyze this. He wrote it in longhand in a pretty unusual place. Is it true that you wrote this in the bathtub?
80% of it, yeah.
Greenspan pokes fun at himself, especially in the telling of his romance with NBC newswoman Andrea Mitchell, who's 21 years younger than he is. On their first date in 1984, they had dinner, and he invited her back to his apartment for a bit of romantic reading.
But would you believe he did want to show me an essay he had written?
About what?
This is antitrust.
Antitrust.
I had
Monopolies.
I had a long...
Monopolies.
On the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890.
You know how to woo a
What's
girl.
even worse?
It worked.
It worked. They dated for 13 years before he finally popped the question.
I hinted at it several different times.
He used Fed speak. It was, who knew he was proposing? I couldn't figure it out.
Oh, and for their honeymoon, he took her to an international monetary conference. His wonkiness and love of statistics go back to when he was a little boy in Depression-era New York City, when he collected railroad timetables, learned Morse code, and memorized baseball stats. You're what we would call today a geek. You're a geek back then.
So, like some people, love reading murder mysteries.
Yeah.
I loved reading that stuff.
And yet he spent a good part of his young life trying to be anything but an economist. His first dream was to be a professional baseball player.
So, because when I was 12 and younger, I could hit a curveball.
We went to a game in Washington the other day, and he showed me how he still fills out the scorecard. It's probably the original Fed speak. It wasn't his curveball, but his handling of the economy.
I gotta tell you, we miss you.
That had people at the game lining up to get his autograph on dollar bills.
If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have a house right now.
Professional ball didn't work out. So what then?
I was going to be a professional musician.
Alan Greenspan Jazz Band. That's going to surprise people. Greenspan was a good enough saxophonist in high school that instead of going right off to college, he was hired by the popular Henry Jerome Orchestra and traveled the country playing bebop jazz. At 17, he was hardly Mr. Cool, while the other band members smoked pot and drank booze between sets. He read books about the British stock market. You're sitting over here by the side reading?
I'm in another room.
You're in another room.
Sitting there reading a book.
You said you ended up doing their income taxes.
True. Yes.
In the end, he became an economist with his own forecasting firm in New York in the 1950s. That's when he became friends with philosopher Ayn Rand, author of Atlas Shrugged. Was this hot off the press when she gave it to you?
Oh, yeah. It was still warm when I read it.
Yeah. Rand advocated a doctrine of unfettered, unregulated capitalism, and Greenspan was one of her most famous disciples. Though in a twist of fate, he'd later become the nation's top banking regulator. You know what her nickname of you was?
The Undertaker.
The Undertaker. She thought you radiated gloom. But Rand also thought that you were too much of a social climber.
I don't know how to respond to that. Everybody is a social climber, if you want to put it in one way or another. I mean, and the reason that we fundamentally is inbred in all of us is the need to get the approval of others. And the ultimate form of getting approval is climbing socially.
So guilty.
I'm guilty, but then the problem is that there is no non-guilties out there.
After years of silence or obtuseness about policies and the people he worked with in Washington, Alan Greenspan opens up in his book, revealing his personal feelings about the 6 presidents he knew and worked for, starting with Richard Nixon. Here's what you say in the book, that he was so profane it would have made Tony Soprano blush. It was that bad?
Oh, indeed. He sits down in the group and within the first 30 seconds utters more 4-letter words than I had heard in the music business. And I said, there's something extraordinarily wrong here, that there were 2 Nixons.
Greenspan writes that Nixon was anti-Semitic, anti-Italian, anti-Greek, anti-Slovak. I don't know anybody he was pro. And Gerald Ford?
Extraordinary human being.
But he wasn't the smartest, you say.
No, he was not the smartest, but he was the most normal.
And that's what you ended up admiring, the normality.
Well, it was also the ethical base of the man. We'd be discussing policy, and he says, let's forget some of the facts. And it's just the right thing to do for the economy.
And the other presidents didn't focus to that extent.
Yeah.
Of Ronald Reagan, he said he had an odd form of intelligence, which he used to improve the country's self-image. He writes that he had a, quote, terrible relationship with the first President George Bush, who pressured Greenspan publicly.
And interest rates should be lower now.
I was shocked because nobody talked about Federal Reserve policy in public.
Was what they did improper?
Oh, indeed, yes.
They crossed a line, in your view.
Well, if you have, as we do, by statute, an independent Federal Reserve, it clearly is in opposition to what the purpose of the law was.
President Bush later said it was Greenspan's fault he lost the election in '92 to Bill Clinton. Clinton was the only Democrat Greenspan served under, and he says the smartest of all the presidents he knew.
Even though I clearly was a Republican, I had to admit that he was an extraordinarily effective president.
You seem to have gotten along with him best of all your presidents.
That's hard.
I mean,
The bottom line is what he called our relationship when he said, we, I think, are the odd couple.
I asked what he thought of Hillary.
Very smart. She and I got along reasonably well.
Do you think she can handle the presidency?
Certainly. Well, I think she's unquestionably capable. The question is she the best person for the job?
And?
My tendency would be to vote Republican.
We all know that when Chairman Greenspan talks, the world listens.
He got so close to Clinton and his economic team that he began visiting the White House as often as once a month, something his predecessors had not done. What was going on?
Well, I was basically being an economic consultant, which was...
But is that proper for the Fed chairman to become an economic consultant of the administration, given the need for the appearance of total independence?
We are one government. The Federal Reserve is not the foreign enemy. I was very knowledgeable about lots of different subjects.
But you were influencing the policy.
I hope I was.
That was behind the scenes. In public, Greenspan was inscrutable whenever Congress asked about interest rates. He resorted to an indecipherable Delphic dialect known as Fed speak.
I would engage in some form of syntax destruction which sounded as though I were answering the question, but in fact had not.
We showed him a tape of him at a hearing.
Modest preemptive actions can obviate the need of more drastic actions at a later date, and that could destabilize the economy. Very profound.
Very profound. Impenetrably profound. And so you worked on these, right?
Oh, of course.
You worked on making it even more. But what would often happen is you'd get two newspapers with opposing headlines coming out of the same hearing.
I succeeded.
Chairman Allen became St. Allen during the robust Clinton years, getting much of the credit for the booming economy, budget surpluses, and soaring markets.
You became a rock star. You did. Say now, people were coming up to you in the street, as I understand it. Tell me if this is true. Thanking you for the growth in their 401ks.
I know.
Wall Street, whose profits soared during his tenure, loved Greenspan too. They called him Easy Al for his tendency to slash rates and make money cheap when the markets went down. Greenspan's most criticized move as Fed chair came at the start of George Bush's term when he supported tax reductions. His testimony, while careful, was read as an endorsement of Bush's massive tax cuts.
Having a tax cut in place may, in fact, do noticeable good.
Greenspan had been saying that the surplus should be used to shore up Social Security and Medicare. But he writes that he came to favor a tax cut because he thought without one, the surplus would get too large.
Yeah, but why didn't you think that Congress would never have allowed it to get that far? Why wouldn't you think they would spend it on education, on bridges, on roads, or whatever they do?
Because they could have, and the numbers were still large enough. So I never explicitly stated that I was in favor of the Bush tax cut. That's what the Bush administration interpreted, but I never said, I was in favor of a tax cut.
Several newspapers, when you testified, said that that you'd done this for political reasons, that you did it to win the hearts of the Bush people. Did you succumb to pressure from the White House?
No, not at all. They never spoke to me about this. I mean, look, you can only say what you believe. I went back over that testimony, and I must tell you, I would not change a word of it.
Even knowing the outcome?
Yeah.
The outcome? The surplus evaporated and the deficits returned. Greenspan had proposed that in that case, the Bush administration adjust and trim back the tax cuts, but that never happened.
Well, remember that their economic policy largely was to take the proposals made during the campaign when there was a prospective very large surplus, and that those policies continued in place irrespective of what was happening to the surplus.
Well, that's very rigid.
I don't know if it was rigid, it was wrong.
Greenspan says he was especially surprised and disappointed by his old friend, Dick Cheney.
He was much less focused on restraining spending than I would have liked. And,
well, actually, Cheney has said deficits don't matter.
Well, I think he was mistaken on that.
So these are your new offices.
Greenspan is out of government now for the first time in 20 years. He set up an economic forecasting firm, Greenspan Associates, and he predicts the current fear sweeping the markets will subside.
Do you think that this is really going to have deep, lasting effect throughout the economy? Jobs, consumer spending?
It's not clear yet, and it will not be clear for quite a while. This is fundamentally originally caused by the flattening out of home prices, and that is only now just beginning. Prices are going to fall further.
Well, what we've already begun to see is not just that housing prices are falling, but that it's affecting the job market for anything related to housing, including real estate, including the sales of appliances and furniture.
But there is an underlying strength in the United States, and indeed, when you look around the world, even with this extraordinary credit problem, the economies seem to be holding up. For the moment, it does not look sufficiently severe that it will spiral into anything deeper. We're going to get through this particular credit crunch. We always do. This is a human behavior phenomenon, and it will pass. The fever will break, and euphoria will start to come back again.
But he does see clouds on the horizon.
Over the long run, this is not going to be what our problem is. Our problem over the long run is the reemergence of inflation.
This is interesting because in your book, your outlook on the broad future is pretty gloomy.
Well,
Interest rates going up, you say,
yes.
Inflation going up.
Yes. Indeed, I in fact have a line in the book where saying this looks pretty gloomy.
When he was chairman, his public statements had enormous impact. He's finding out they still do. In February, he rattled the markets by predicting there was a 1 in 3 chance of a recession this year. It forced the current chairman, Ben Bernanke, to try and calm things down and raise questions about the propriety of his speaking out.
This isn't like any normal forecaster going public.
So I then become incarcerated and I'm not allowed to do anything because I might say something?
What is your responsibility? Let's put it in those terms.
My responsibility is what I am doing now. I'm not commenting on monetary policy. I'm commenting on global things.
Yeah, but the comment that has most people upset was your prediction about a recession, that you shouldn't be commenting on on recession, inflation.
But how am I going to pursue my profession without doing precisely that?
Well, you know, sometimes people in Congress have this rule that they can't work in related fields or can't become a lobbyist for X amount of time. Should there be a respite here?
There was. For a year, I was not allowed to go lobby the Fed, which I would never done and haven't done. And,
No, I mean about speaking.
Yeah. There's no restriction on speaking.
Should there be?
No.
Should you impose one yourself?
No.
When he's not working these days, he does what he's always done to relax. Yep, he flips through government reports with all those geeky numbers.
He loves these data. I mean, look at the stuff
quite.
here.
This is his
I mean,
stuff?
this is his morning reading. Still.
This is his Bureau of Labor Statistics, Productivity and Cost. This is your sit down over the cup of coffee in the morning?
Oh, yeah. I just loved getting into the detail of, say, protein content of hard red winter wheat was because the differential in price,
Yes.
the differential in price between
very romantic.
Kansas City and Chicago was relevant. It was romantic to me. That's what the joke is, and I'm still that way. I mean, I just love that stuff.